Welcome to the Growth Through Adversity podcast, where men are forged, not coddled. Here we dive deep into the path of true transformation in pursuit of physical, mental, spiritual, and temporal growth. We talk training, nutrition, business, mindset, and spirituality. We embrace strength and we loathe ease. We reject weakness in every form and cultivate power, the will to power itself. This is the rebirth of modern man. Raw masculinity, tempered by reason, virtue, and right action, because nothing of value is earned without sacrifice. Let's begin our apotheosis together. Welcome to another episode of the Growth Through Adversity podcast with your host, Ragnar the Warwolf. What is up, people? So last week we talked about calories and macros and how to calculate your calories and macros. So this is part of my Primal Foundation series. I've been wanting to put this together for a while. So this week we're going to break down on what to do with those numbers and how you actually build a meal plan out of the raw numbers that you have. So most people can figure out with the online apps and ChatGPT and all that shit how to calculate your macros, but have trouble figuring out how to translate that into what to eat in real life. So you know your numbers, but you don't know your food, which is just about fucking as useful as a poop flavored popsicle. So you end up starving, binging, or quitting because you don't know the actual science and the actual method behind this. My clients, I'm really trying to focus on not just hitting macros. I'm trying to get them to eat at a higher level, like athletes, and eat for performance, and to eat to get their body to do what it wants, what we want it to do, right? So macros are math, meals are the mastery. We're going to go through and we're going to break down the macronutrients first. Number one, protein is your foundation. The science and reasoning behind this is because protein is the building block for enzymes, muscles, hormones, and recovery. It is so important in your body, and you have to get it in adequate amounts, especially when you're breaking your body down with super difficult training. So another thing that protein does is it raises thermogenesis, which just means that it burns more calories during digestion. This is called your TEF, or the thermic effect of food. It can make up somewhere between 10 and 20% of calories burned, depending on what your macronutrient split is like. Diets higher in protein are going to burn more calories just in the digestion process. So for context, protein has roughly a 30% thermic effect, meaning that about 30% of the calories of protein are eaten up just in the digesting process. So you can almost subtract 30% of, so if you eat 100 calories in protein, your body is only actually effectively getting 70 calories because 30 calories are going to be used just digesting that protein. So when we're in a fat loss cycle, eating high protein is going to help us burn more calories while doing nothing, which we really, really want to do, right? We want to make this as easy as possible. So another thing protein is going to do is it's going to help you maintain your lean body mass. The amount of time and the amount of protein that we want to eat is really 1 gram per pound of lean body mass, right? That's our baseline. Some people, you can go as low as 0.75 grams per pound of lean body mass, but there's just no need. There's no harm. There's never been shown to be a harm in eating a little bit higher protein. So sometimes on a really high protein diet, people will eat up to 2 grams per pound of body mass. That's probably excessive. Like 1 gram per pound of lean body mass is probably legit, but you don't want to go anything under that. So where does protein come from? Number one, the best sources of protein are animal-based proteins. So steak, chicken, turkey, eggs, fish, anything that comes from the flesh of an animal or its eggs are inherently mostly made up of protein and fats. Depending on where it comes from on the animal, what type of animal it is will depend on what the ratio between fat and protein in these different meats. Whey protein is also great for convenience, high bioavailability, very easy to digest, very simple to make. Really no reason not to hit your protein goals if you're supplementing whey. So from dairy, Greek yogurt, and cottage cheese can also both be very low fat, excellent sources of highly bioavailable, high quality proteins. Plant-based sources are tofu, lentils, tempeh. These are going to be a lot less bioavailable, so they're not complete proteins like they are coming from animal source proteins. That's the real difference. And so to not go into like too much nerd stuff, a complete protein is a protein that has all of the essential amino acids that your body can't make on its own. An incomplete protein has some of those amino acids. So when you're eating incomplete proteins, you have to eat a very diverse set of different proteins to make sure you get all of the essential protein or essential amino acids that you need. Whereas when you eat animal-based foods, you get them all with all the different types, so you don't really have to think about that sort of thing. That's why programming meal plans for vegans and vegetarians is much more complex, in my opinion, than it is just programming it regularly. So another thing that protein does is it blunts hunger via two peptides, the YY and the GLP-1. So these are key satiety hormones. GLP-1 agonists are literally medications that mimic this and make you not hungry and are used for fat loss. Things like retatrutide, things of that nature. Each meal should have a primary protein anchor. So every one of your meals should be built around 30 to 50 grams of protein. And really, I like to trend more towards that 50-gram mark. So I had a client named Simon. He used to eat these tiny meals and snacks all day. Once we built meals around 40 to 50 grams of protein anchors, his hunger vanished, his snacking went down, and his body composition improved on a week-to-week basis. So it makes a really big difference. So number two, we've got carbohydrates. These are your body's preferred fuel source. They fuel the brain and they fuel the muscles. Glucose is what carbohydrates break down into. It can be used as fast energy directly from the bloodstream, or it can be converted to glycogen in the liver and stored as energy for a later date. If you restrict carbs too hard, you're going to be fatigued, you're going to have really low quality training, and you're going to have hormonal stress, especially cortisol. Carbohydrates are one of the number one agents we have to combat cortisol. So that's why a lot of like the refeeds and a lot of the reset diets and the reverse diets focus around really high carbohydrates, because that's what's going to lower cortisol, which is going to preserve your muscle and help make it much easier to lose fat. So, best sources of carbs are things like rice, potatoes, whole grains like oats, fruit, and honey. Fiber is also a type of carbohydrate. Micronutrient carbs are going to be things like veggies, berries, quinoa. Fiber can be very important in the diet. You want at least about 30 grams of fiber, ideally closer to 40, just for overall digestive health and insulin sensitivity and glucose management. So, pre-workout, you're going to want carbs for energy. You're going to want something that's quick and simple and fast digesting. Things like bagels, things like white rice, even liquid carbs work just fine. Post-workout, you're going to want something that's a little slower digesting. Things like a whole grain or a brown rice, something or a starchy carb like potatoes. Something that's going to take your body a lot longer to break down and release smaller doses of glucose over time. So there's a big kind of like argument in the nutrition world on high carb to high fat diets. So what are and there's not really a right or a wrong way to do this. Personally, I prefer a higher carbohydrate diet because I perform better, I'm stronger, I feel better, I have more energy. And that's what higher carbohydrates do is they give you better for strength, it's better for training frequency, it's better for recovery. Whereas higher fat is really good for low volume, endurance, hormonal balance phases. So if you're not doing really intense types of exercise, you can probably get away with higher fats. Some people like higher fats even doing the intense exercise. I just personally don't. So, and that brings us right into fats. Fats, I like to look at as our hormone regulators. Um, they are absolutely needed for testosterone, for brain health, and for cellular structure. So, 20 to 30% of your diet has to be made up of fats. That's non-negotiable. If it gets too low, it's going to tank your hormones, right? So I do like to trend on the lower end of that. I typically build my own meal plan and a lot of my clients' meal plans closer to the 20% mark than the 30% mark, but it does just depend. The reason for that being is, again, like we talked about last week, fats are very calorically dense. They have 9 calories per gram, whereas carbs and proteins have just 4 calories per gram. So you get over double the calories per fat. Now, again, fats are important, but they do add up fast, and they're very low satiety foods. Like fats are things like olive oil, avocados, nuts, egg yolks, fatty fish. These are not things that are going to fill you up, but they're things that you're going to get a shitload of calories from. And you definitely want to avoid trans fats, seed oils. These are really inflammatory. They're not good for you. But yeah, that's the mistake that people's make with fat is they hear, hey, fats are healthy. They are healthy, but you can't treat them as free calories. Like for context, one fucking tablespoon of olive oil has 120 calories, and you get virtually no satiety from it. So again, it is good for you, but you do have to manage that. So let's talk about satiety and food quality. Let's start with the satiety hierarchy because remaining full in a deficit is really important. A lot of my clients actually complain that even in a cut, it feels like too much food. And that's because we're eating high satiety food and we're following my satiety hierarchy here. So, number one, protein is the most satiating food there is. The more protein you eat, the less you need to eat of other stuff. Number two, fiber. Fiber slows down your digestion, takes forever for your body to break it down, so it remains in your body longer, which makes you feel full for longer. Number three, volume food. Veggies, they have a high water content and they just take up a lot of volume. Like a huge bowl of broccoli will be like, a couple hundred, like 100 and something calories. And it's gonna fucking fill you up. It's not gonna last a super long time because it's mostly water. But it is gonna fill you up. So carbs and fats combined, they're hyper palatable. We love them. They are high threshold energy foods. Our starving brains and metabolism that evolved in the Pleistocene when resources were very limited crave carbohydrates and fats like at a high level. So when you eat them, there is a high risk for overeating. It's also shown to like carbohydrates increase cause your body to dump a lot of insulin, which causes your body to store nutrients. It carries the carrier molecule that carries nutrients into the cell, and that does include into the fat cells. So mixing those two together in high doses and overeating them is a great way to end up fat with some bitch tits. So ultra processed food are going to override your hunger hormones. They're unnatural. They're not good for you. Your body doesn't recognize them in normal ways. So real food is going to create real feedback loops with the hungry satiety signals, and it's not going to happen overnight. But if you get more used to eating real foods, you're going to have a healthier balance between your hunger and your satiety. So if you're starving after a 700 calorie meal, it's not your metabolism, it's your it's your food quality. Like a great example of this, I always tell people is think about fast food. So you can eat 2,000 calories at a fast food restaurant, and and you're going to be hungry again in a fucking hour. Whereas if you eat 2,000 calories of broccoli, of rice, of chicken, of ground turkey, it's going to be hard to physically eat that much fucking food, and you're going to stay you're going to stay full for a long time, and you're not going to have a tendency to overeat. So, real world application, how to build your meals. Step one, we want to anchor with protein. We want to start with 30 to 50 grams of protein, right? After that, we want to add our performance carbs. So, somewhere in the 30 to 60 gram range of performance carbs. Then, number three, we're going to add in our fats with whatever we have left. Usually, it's going to just amount to something like 10 to 15 grams of fat. And then, number four, we're going to add volume. We're going to throw in our veggies. We're going to throw in our fiber. And number five, we're going to flavor it to taste, right? So, and the flavoring step, I always tell people seasonings are a great choice. Be careful with your sauces, either buy sugar-free, zero-calorie sauces, or just be very careful with them. Mustard, hot sauce are safe, but things like mayo, ranch, barbecue sauce, these are jam-packed full of sugar and are going to add a shitload of extra calories. So do be careful with that. So an example meal, very simple. Take chicken, take 40 grams of protein, chicken breast, add rice, get 50 grams of carbs, add maybe a half an avocado. That's going to give you about 12 grams of fat. Throw in some broccoli, and this is a perfect, well-balanced meal. And it's very simple to make, and it's very simple to calculate. So meal prep simplified. Like bulk cook your protein and your carbohydrates once a week. Just cook all of your protein and all of your carbohydrates once a week. Throw the carbs into a Tupperware. Throw the protein on top of it. Throw it all in the freezer. Pull out a couple days at a time. Very easy. Another thing you can do is instant rice, instant oatmeal, fruit, things like that for quick carbs. And then you can pre-portion your fats, your nuts and your oils, your dressings, things like that. You can have ready ahead of time so that it's kind of pre-portioned and calculated into your fat stores. So flexibility and sustainability. I always tell people don't chase perfection, aim for consistency, right? So you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have setbacks. Your nutritional journey is not going to be perfect. But if you're consistent over a long duration, you're going to see great results, right? So what I like to do is I like to rotate 3 to 4 meals per time block. So I'll do maybe a week or two of meal prep, and I'll have like 3 or 4 different meals that I'm choosing from. And then I'll eat, my 3 meals during that time block, and then maybe in a month I'll change it. And I just kind of keep this going over time. Obviously, different training cycles and different phases of training, cutting, bulking, recomposition are going to have different calories and macros. So you're going to be able to work different things into your diet. You're going to be most flexible when you're bulking. You're going to be tightest and most stingy when you're cutting. So you don't have to track every single crumb. You have to track patterns. And if you eat the same meals every day, then you really don't have to track anything. You just have to track on the days where you don't eat those same meals. So if you get bored, learn how to build swaps in and fit the same macros in with different meals. This can be done. You can use AI to do this. You can use MyFitnessPal to do this. It's pretty fucking simple. You're just going to take your calories and your macros, and you're just going to find something that's to substitute for it that's different when you get tired of eating the same shit. So we're going to final wrap up here is we're going to talk about turning theory into a daily structure. So in the morning, I like to start my day with a pretty well-rounded meal. I work out first thing in the morning, so my meal is generally structured around carbohydrates. Once I'm done with my workout, I drink a protein shake on the way home, and then I come home and I eat a complete meal. So it's got proteins, fats, carbohydrates. In the rest of the day, I'm going to eat most of my carbs throughout the day, right? And in the evening, I'm going to try to just focus on proteins and fats and have a little bit less carbs, so I'm not just like kind of spiking my insulin up and just hammering a bunch of extra fats and a bunch of extra nutrients into my body when it's less receptive to it. I want to angle my carbs really around my workout time as much as I possibly can. So, like a simple example day would be you could start your day with something like eggs, oats, a little bit of berry. You could have lunch, you could have chicken, rice, vegetables. For a snack, whey protein and maybe a handful of nuts makes a great snack. Dinner, you can have steak, potatoes, some greens. And then before bed, maybe we'll have another protein shake or just like a little bit of Greek yogurt, just a high protein snack. Give our body those amino acids to rebuild itself overnight while trying to stay away from carbs and fats. So in closing, you don't necessarily need a rigid meal plan. You need a framework. You need to understand everything that we just went through to be able to make your own meal plan. And it's actually very simple. Once you understand food categories, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and your energy systems, how your body actually metabolizes this food and uses it for energy, you're basically free. Numbers tell you what's possible. Food choices determine your results. You master your body through understanding and not just restriction. And guys, that is all I have for you today. Again, this is the second in the Primal Foundation series. I'm trying to make these as practical and implementable as possible. And if you're one of my clients, this will be up as a replay in the Facebook group. And if you're not, sorry, maybe you should think about becoming one of my awesome fucking clients. Either way, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will be back Thursday for the next little diatribe. Make sure I didn't miss anything.